Hello and welcome to All for Wins Football and the 12th edition of Lower League Lingo. I'm going to apologise in advance. My voice is not quite where it should be. So if I occasionally drop into a falsetto, I'm not practicing to be Freddie Mercury. It's just been a very tricky day at work with a lot of vocal exercises that I'm not used to doing. So we'll see how we get on. That's how I'm feeling today. Let's see how everybody else is getting on. Gareth, lovely to have you back, sir. How the devil are you?
Good, thank you. Yeah, good. Looking forward to chatting about the FA Cup.
Absolutely. You've got to love talking about the FA Cup. And Mr. John Foster, have you behaved yourself? Have you chosen 2 FA Cup matches or have you made me write down a league once again?
Hello, Barry. Yes, 2 FA Cup games. Looking forward to this one, absolutely.
Lovely. It is indeed a Women's FA Cup special because it was the first round of the FA Cup. And what a round it was. As ever, when it comes to the FA Cup, there are stories up and down the country. We could only choose 6 because there's the rules that we've set for each other. But there was plenty that you could be looking at. But these are our, I say top 6. They're the 6 that we felt we really wanted to get out there. So let's not waste any more time. Let's get straight into it. And here we are. The very first game of the FA Cup first round that we wanted to look at was Derby County 1, Leafield Athletic 3. So if it's Leafield Athletic, I wonder who might that be? It's John. Talk to us, John. Why is the fact that Leafield Athletic won against Derby 3-1 away from home important to you? Let us know.
FA Cup, you talk about memories, you talk about making moments and the magic of the FA Cup. Well, this is a great example of it. This was my pick of the week on last week's episode. I said, look out for this one. I mentioned there might be a surprise, there might be an upset, but I also added a twist on the end saying if Leafield do win, it might not actually be an upset, and I think that's pretty much the way it went. 8th in Tier 3 versus 2nd in Tier 4. Lots of wins for Leafield this season. They've won 8 out of 9 going into this game, and Derby have lost 6 out of 10. So it's probably a little bit tighter than what people thought, even though Derby would have gone in as the favourites. And we wasn't disappointed. Barry, I know that you like nice, fancy location names in these episodes. So Derby played at Mikulova, and I thought Mikulova is quite a nice name, so I just thought I'd shout that one out. I've been to the stadium a couple of times. It's 20 minutes west of Pride Park, so not too far away, and it is actually quite a nice ground. So I just thought I'd shout that one out, and a big attendance.
I have
as well.
heard of the name Mikulova before, but you're right, it is a superb name. I love it.
I like it. 266 in attendance as well, so not too bad at all, especially considering Leafield are currently growing their fan base with what they're achieving this year as well. So, good momentum there. Derby County goalkeeper also celebrated her 200th appearance for Derby County, and if you do your maths in the women's game, 22 league games plus a few cup games. That's quite a few seasons at one club. So a big shout out to her. Absolutely fantastic to see. Derby brought back in about 4 or 5 players who won 4-2 against Hull in their previous game, and it didn't really seem to do them much good, to be honest. Leafield obviously went 1-0 up quite early. And if I'm honest, I don't think many people probably saw that coming, unless if he was actually at the game. Camille Jenkins equalised 10 minutes later to make it 1-1 at half time. And then one of my favourite players, Jess Lowe, made it 2-1. If you like your attacking wingers, someone who can carry the ball from one box to the other box, actually dribble past players and not just do all this tiki-taka, then Jess Lowe is your person to watch. Tiara Jade made it 3. That's where he finished 3-1 to Leafield. And all 3 goals as well are on the Leafield Twitter page. And it's also nice to see this season that more and more clubs are actually releasing video footage of some good moments. It could be tackles if you're a defender, could be saves if you're a goalkeeper, could be goals in this case. And it is nice to see. I know some managers are against it because they might give away a few things. However, I think footage is becoming a bit more popular now anyway. So why not celebrate a bit of success and show what your players are doing? I think it's great to see. Derby captain Emily Joyce said after the game that they just weren't good enough and that Leafield wanted it more. And by looking at the passion that Leafield are showing this season, I could probably agree with that, absolutely. Leafield now travel to Norwich for the next round, which is quite a bit of a journey for them. You know, we talk about a lot of these fixtures kind of being regionalised and not so much scripted as such, but you know, you're probably in a very small pot. This is one where Leafield do have to travel quite far. Just a couple of words on Leafield and what they're doing. It is an amazing achievement with what they have done. I'm sure it's like 7 games unbeaten. It might even be 7 wins on the trot. I'm not too sure. I think they've got about 6 out of 7 clean sheets in the last game, in the last few games as well. And to say that they finished 9th last season, 9th the season before, and now 2nd in the league. You know, winning tier 3 opposition on the weekend. It really is remarkable. I did just reach out to one of the players' family members, just actually saying or asking the question, what are they doing? You know, what's it all about? And I won't shout out the person's name just in case I've embarrassed her, but she's allowed me to talk about it at least. And she just says that the belief and the trust in each other on and off the pitch is evident. And what Tasha's doing with the well-being side and, you know, just her man management is really just giving them that hunger and that belief that they can keep on winning every game. And I can really see that, absolutely. I can't say too much more than that because I'll probably give away who I spoke to. But it's nice. It's a nice story down there, absolutely. And roll on the next cup game, I would say.
No, I would tend to agree with that. Talking about great names, Hayley Crackle. That's a cracking name as well, isn't it? I didn't even mean the pun there with the word cracking, but yeah, love that. That's an absolute banger. Big fan. So, what's going to happen to the mighty Leafield? Well, they are going to be travelling to the Nest. I know the name of that place because I've been there before. They will be facing Norwich City. So it's an away game. So they get the joy of travelling to another side, and it should be very, very interesting. Norwich just about scraping past Cambridge United away from home as well. That was a 1-0 win. So that will be your second round match there. It will be, like I say, Norwich against Leafield Athletic. And who knows, there could be a spot in round 3 for Leafield Athletic. Would that make them round 3 Field Athletic? I don't know. Let's move on from that before Gareth implodes at such terrible humour. You can see it already. He's like, no. Okay, he's going to get his chance to speak now. I bet he can't come up with any really good ones like that, any witty banter. We've got FC St Helens against Donny Rovers Bells. So why don't you tell us, Gareth, why is it a big thing that the queens of women's football in Doncaster Rover Bells have disappeared from the competition to FC St Helens?
I think that's the crux of it, isn't it? I think Doncaster are this club, and when I've covered them before, they're a club with such history in the women's game, with things they've achieved before in this competition as well, and to see where they're at now is a long way from where they have been in the past. You know, their league form isn't fantastic, and I think when they got this draw against Regional League Division 1 South St Helens, they would have looked at it as a way of hopefully kind of getting back their season back on track. However, that's not how it's proven to be. And St Helens are a tricky outfit. They're difficult to break down. They're a good side, and they've shown that here against Doncaster. The game seemed to be even throughout the first hour, really, before Sophie Griffiths gave St Helens the lead. And yeah, the game can go one of two ways from there. It seemed then that Doncaster kind of got a bit a bit about them, and they responded to this well by equalising. But then St Helens didn't allow that to phase them at all, and were able to go and find that winner. And I think this is an incredible achievement for St Helens, making the second round proper of the FA Cup. I think we kind of touched on this before, but prize money is so hugely important to a lot of these sides. You know, the £15,000 or so that St Helens will have earned throughout their FA Cup journey to date, minimum depending on what they do in the next round, is massive. And it's massive for clubs like that. It can fund their entire budget for a season, 2 seasons, something like that. So, yeah, massive kudos to St Helens. I think sometimes there's a risk, isn't there, of sides playing the occasion rather than the game. You come up against this side that's 2 tiers above, especially a side like Doncaster, where there's a successful EFL club affiliated to them. Their success in the game previously can kind of hang over things, but St Helens did not let that affect them at all. They went out there, they did the business, and all power to them. Kudos to them. They reap the rewards with a second round tie now, and they confidence is going to be high. They can take that confidence back into the league next week, because that league down there is looking interesting at the moment, and I think they'll really be looking to seize some momentum and really push it forward. And I think it's easy to talk about the magic of the cup, and I think that's a bit of a cliche at times, but it's something that we've definitely tried to highlight here. It would have been easy to look at some results like Burnley winning 12-0, but these kinds of results, these close results where lower league sides are going toe to toe and knocking out sides 2 leagues above them, and really seizing the opportunity, is fantastic to see. St Helens, I know very well personally that they're a strong side. They were the only side to beat us at Wythenshawe last year in the league domestically, at home as well. So it's a tricky place to go, and yeah, they absolutely deserve to be in the next round, and good luck to them.
Absolutely that. So it's great news for everybody. Not the first bit. FC St Helens, quite interesting to try and find their badge, because obviously St Helens is traditionally a rugby name when you first hear of it. So obviously that's the slightly bigger team of the two. So it does mean that you have to search for a few bits and pieces before you finally get there. But again, this is what this game is all about: the ability to raise the profiles of these teams, and certainly FC St Helens here have done that. They have got, are we ready for this, boys? They've got a home tie in the second round, and they're facing I think I'm going to get this league right. I'm going to try it. My favourite Northern Region named side, which is Cheadletown Stingers. They're in there. They did it. Cheadletown Stingers managed to beat Fylde by 2-0, which meant they're also in the second round proper. So what a game that's going to be. FC St Helens and maybe that's going to be the one that Gareth ends up covering next time round, which will be towards the end of November. I hope so, because again, absolutely love the name of that group. So there we go. Right, let's move on to the next one. It must be me, and indeed it is. And I've gone very left field with my choices for this one today, because these are 2 teams who have never been mentioned on the show as yet, and that's part of the joy of the FA Cup. It gives you the opportunity to throw these things out there. And we've got, as I say, Saltdean United 2, South London 1. Now, South London, very interesting. Just going to throw this one out there straight away. When you're trying to find information for these teams, they're part of the Greater London Women's Football League. That's the league we were talking about last week with regards to suitable attire and referees not getting above their station when they didn't need to. These guys are in that particular region, and they're not having the greatest of times. I will ask now, They don't know that I'm doing this. But if you're around the South London region and you're into football and you're into your social media as well, it'd be nice if there was somebody who might like to maybe try and get involved in the social media, I think, for South London, because they don't appear to have had anything on their Twitter account for the last 4 years. So that was a wasted journey going into that bit of social media. So it might be nice, be good. That's how these clubs survive, through voluntary efforts. I know people like John have done that. I know that Gareth's done that as well. And it's part of what I do as well in my role. So it's a really good thing if people can get involved to do that. But having looked at them, they are working incredibly hard in the Greater London Women's Football League, I say, in the Premier Division. And they're in 6th place at the moment there. So they're not having the easiest of times. They've only played 5 games. They have won most of them. Drawn 1, lost 1. It's not terrible. It's certainly not relegation form as it stands. But when you move aside from that, you've got Saltdean, who are in the London and the South East Regional League. And they are having a blinder at the moment. They've played 7, won 7. Got a goal difference of 19. And they are 21 points to the good. And what's this got to do with the FA Cup? I hear you say, well, absolutely nothing. I'm just giving you a little bit of an idea as to what's going on with the teams and how they're getting on this season. Because this result isn't, I would suggest, a surprise based on the form of the 2 teams. But they are 2 teams that are working hard in their leagues and doing incredibly well. Saltdean are 2nd, by the way, in the London and South East Regional. And they've only played a game more than Fulham FC. So if you think about that, we're talking about the Fulham that are currently playing at Craven Cottage and are obviously having some injection of money of some sort put into them as they really try and push Fulham up the leagues. So for Saltdean to be matching them, going toe for toe at the moment, they're doing incredibly well. So 2-1, it was in the end. As you can see, the goals there from Georgia Bridges and Kirsty Barton. Rachel Todd scoring for South London. And like I say, it's a good game. It's not necessarily unexpected. But why was it important? Well, it raised flags for me because Saltdean, this will be the first time in the history of their club that they are in the 2nd round proper. And for me, I think that deserved a massive round of applause. There's other notable mentions for that. Royston Town, for example, they made it into the 2nd round for the first time in their history as well. But despite that, I really wanted to, give the kudos where we could to Saltdean United. So that's why I brought them up. That's why they have been mentioned. They are away. They've got a big old game. They are travelling to Queen's Park Rangers, which again is one of those, they're a tier 4 side, I think, doing incredibly well as well. They're a very good side. They're a side that, when you just mention the name QPR and Queen's Park Rangers, automatically the ears prick up because they're a very well-known side. I can't say they had the hardest of routes, QPR. Their away game, I'm going to try and get this one right, they won 3-0 away to Penn and Tyler's Green Ladies. I haven't had time to research where they are, but they're certainly not in the first 4 tiers of women's football. So they're going to be somewhere in tier 5 or 6. So maybe not the hardest one for them, but I would wager that Saltdean will give QPR a run for their money. So very much looking forward to seeing how that goes on in the next round. Right, I get to give my voice a slight rest while we move back over to the man we call John Foster, who's going to talk to us about the highest scoring game of our weekend, which is, of course, Shrewsbury 3, Northampton Town.
Yeah, Shrewsbury continue a great couple of cup campaigns there, still in the League Cup as well. 338 in attendance. If you've gone to the FA full time, you won't find any information on there, unfortunately. But thankfully, the Shrewsbury and Northampton Twitter page was very, very good on the match day. But 338 for a tier 5 and tier 4 team, it's very, very commendable. So definitely worth a mention. 2 players came back into the starting level that didn't play in the previous game, and they both combined for the first goal. So it was Carr with the assist, and it was Doster with the goal. That was on, I think, the 43rd minute, and Shrewsbury went in at half-time 1-0 up. And it took about 15 minutes before Northampton managed to get that equaliser, around about the 58th minute. So then it was 1-1. Then 71 minutes in, Shrewsbury took the lead. Substitute Jones with the corner, and then it was a header into the back of the net by Vicky Owens, which was quite a relief, I would have thought, for Shrewsbury after going 1-0 up in front of a massive home crowd. I believe it was at the main stadium as well, hence why the attendance was so good. 10 minutes later, with just 10 minutes to go, Shrewsbury made it 3-1. So it looked like it was all done. But then 95 minutes in, Northampton pull that second goal back, but it was just a little bit too late to push on. So the game finished 3-2 to the Tier 5 team. Head coach Darryl Tidman-Poole said that they come out and delivered everything that they worked on in training, and that's what they delivered. Really confident talking. She does quite a bit of videos after the games, and she does come across very confident, and she felt she'd come across confident in this one. I appreciate she won, maybe that's the reason why, but it's almost like she went into this game with a game plan and it worked perfectly. And as Gareth mentioned earlier, with this being an FA Cup game, the money's there, so Northampton would have come into this definitely wanting to win. So to lose in the way that they did would be very, very disappointing. Just a little bit on Shrewsbury. I have actually watched them play this season, and they are very good. They're building their squad. They're building a new team there. The manager, who I just mentioned, came from Wolves reserve team last year. She was there under 21s when it rebranded from reserve team to under 21s. They still played in the Midlands reserve team. However, they rebranded it as the under 21s, and she took a couple of players with her to Shrewsbury in the summer. So they got links with Wolverhampton Wanderers, which is great to see as well. So we've mentioned a few Tier 5 teams on this channel over the last 12 episodes, but I've not really mentioned Shrewsbury. But when you look at the pedigree that they've got, it's such a difficult league down there that there's so many teams that could pop up and get promoted, and maybe now Shrewsbury have found their feet and can push on in the league as well.
Yeah, I think so. Lovely, like I say, to see another side being mentioned on here. So again, it's a very difficult job for us. We've only got 6 games, which means there's only 12 teams that we can talk about each time, and some of those are bound to cross over at times. So Shrewsbury, what are they going to do? Well, they have got the joys of a home tie in the second round. They are going to be facing Sheffield FC, who defeated the mighty Penrith, which I have to be honest, always reminds me of like King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. It sounds like that sort of era, doesn't it? Penrith. You can just imagine that alongside Lancelot and such like. So that's what's going to be happening. It's Shrewsbury against Sheffield FC in round 2, and one of those 2 teams will be moving to round 3 because that's how numbers work. Right, this is a big one. And when Gareth told me this was one that he was choosing, I had a little smile, and it started burning the embers that I've got within me for women's football, because this is a great story. So I'm going to shut up and let him tell it. Handsworth 2, York City 0.
So Handsworth currently play in the North East Division 1 South. They're currently 5th in that league after playing 5 games. 4th in that league, York City development side. However, when it comes to the FA Cup, none of that matters. It doesn't matter that York City's first side are in the 4th tier of English football and Handsworth are in the 6th. York City have not had a great start to their season. They find themselves in the relegation zone. And they too probably would have looked at this fixture, similar to Doncaster, and thought this can be an opportunity for us to get on track. No, apparently not, because Handsworth had different ideas. And once they found that breakthrough, they got their foot on the throat pretty quickly and they did not take it off. York were resistant for the vast majority of that first half, but 2 goals in quick succession towards the end of the first half, and there was no way back for York there. So York's torrid season continues. For whatever reason, Handsworth have only played 5 games in the league, having won 4 of them and lost 1. So there is a discrepancy in terms of games played there. Some have played 8 and Handsworth have played 5. So I don't think really that them being a mid-table side there is indicative of where they're at. But Ossett United have won all 7 games in the league. So again, similar to some other sides, they're going to want to put themselves in that discussion. And what a great story this is. Again, York City EFL club. There is, whether or not York City put an awful lot of that money into the women's side and a lot of that attention into the women's setup, I don't know. But this is great, and these are the kinds of games that these players will remember for years. And that sounds super cliche, but these are the games. These are what gets you out of bed on a cold December morning when there's niggles and muscles are sore, and the FA Cup is crazy, and it blows my mind that, I mean, not so much anymore because we lost this weekend, but it's tricky sometimes for me to comprehend that if we have a good run here, it's not beyond the realms of possibility for Arsenal, City, United, Chelsea, etc., to get drawn against us in the 4th round. Handsworth are now 2 wins, 3 hours of football away from potentially a massive tie. They have Mancunian unity in the next round of the in the second round, which means then they have to be a tier 5 side. They're tier 6, they have to be a tier 5 side. But if they pull off another upset, they could be getting drawn against Newcastle, against Birmingham City, against some real big names in women's football, and that's hugely exciting. And so yeah, my eyes are going to be on this fixture in the next round, because I just love stories like this. There's a few more as well. South Shield's got a fantastic result, winning on penalties against Halifax. That's a tier 5 side knocking out a tier 3 side. But I think it goes to show that when you're playing knockout football, your league form is massive. If you're in form in the league, that can nullify so many things. Halifax struggling, Doncaster struggling, York struggling in the league. These big sides with fantastic players, but it can be tricky. And I think as well, I'm not saying necessarily that any of those 3 sides did this. You can kind of underestimate teams. You don't really know anything about them. You kind of go and think, this is a game that we should be winning. You highlight it as a game that you should win, and then you concede and you don't have time to respond. You concede again, and your game plan's gone. Halftime team talk then with 8 minutes to go, gone. Having to rewrite that, replan, tactically reanalyze at halftime to get ready to go again, and it's tricky. But yeah, all credit to Handsworth, and I hope they go and do it. I hope they, get an upset against Unity. I mean, Unity beat Stockport, so they'll be looking to make the 3rd round as well. But for either of those 2 sides, that's huge. And more power to them. They went out there, they did the business, and they're going to reap the rewards.
Absolutely. Gareth stealing my job there. He's already told you who Handsworth are going to be playing. They're away to Mancunian Unity, as he's mentioned. He hasn't told you the score, though. They battered Stockport. It was 6-2, the final score there for Mancunian Unity against Stockport. So that will be round 2 for Handsworth, and good luck to them. We spoke a bit about money as well on this one. Interesting to point out that we said it's about 15,000 for the team that won in the first round proper. The team that lost, providing they entered at the first round of qualifying, would have earned £10,000, which is still a sizable amount of money for a club. If they were entered at the second qualifying round, then it's about 8,000. So still a good chunk of money that could help them throughout the season. So very important to just throw that one out as well, because the FA Cup is a real place where you can get yourself a good wad of cash for your seasons. Now, I have gone 12 weeks shining the light elsewhere along the south of England. And I think I've done a pretty good job of it. I've shared it out nicely. I've tried not to be too repetitive. I've tried to maintain a thread. But, boys and girls, I'm afraid the time has come, because I was privileged enough to witness what I have written in my match report as a proper cup tie. And that's exactly what it was. And this is the debut of on Low League Lingo of Stevenage FCW. Now, I suppose I should probably preface all of this with everything that comes from this point on is my own opinions and nothing to do with anybody else, just in case there's any lawyers watching and they feel like they want to have a go at us. This is all me now, just me, nobody else. Not that I'm going to say anything controversial, because that's not what this is about. But Cambridge City playing at the New Croft. My goodness, they had loads of people walking into that ground. Now, the New Croft is a place where Stevenage went a couple of seasons ago to play in the League Cup final against Luton, and they lost 2-1. It was a tricky tie for them. So it wasn't the best of places to have to return to. But in the away dugout this time, which was an interesting experience. And Cambridge City had had lots of media presence. There have been BBC lookies, loads of people talking about the youth of their squad, all of those types of things. And so clearly I can't say the nation's eye, but certainly the county's eye was on this fixture to see what would happen and what was going on. And listen, it was an absolute doozy. Loads of young girls who turned up there as well to support Cambridge City. There was a nice little atmosphere they were bringing in. It had a real cup tie feeling about it. And that's exactly what happened, because you can see there, Jade Barrett. This is a side that Stevenage beat 6-2 earlier on in the season. Jade Barrett in the 5th minute scores a goal. So Lucy Webster, bless her, heads the ball away, all going well, but it ends up at Faith Harrison's feet. She passes it through to Jade Barrett, past Lauren Reeves. Not a lot Stevenage could do about it. I counted 11 chances from that point on. Cambridge didn't have another shot for the rest of that half. Stevenage got into it. They were shooting. Amy Makewell was doing well. Jim Croucher was doing well. And Ace Corrigan was doing well. All of the guys at the front doing absolutely brilliant. But the goalkeeper was also doing excellent, as was the goal, which was leading a charmed life. Didn't matter though. Still 1-0 at half time. And it's one of those where you're going in and you're thinking, how has this stayed 1-0? There's been some real opportunities here. But you get to the second half and all is forgiven really quickly. Free kick over on the right-hand side by Anna Baker-Ray. Cross comes in and Rebecca Edge, as she so often is, gets onto the end of it, heads it into the net. Thank you very much. Not straight into the net, floor and in. And 1-0. Cue jubilant scenes. Now, the rest of the half carried on pretty much the same as the first. Cambridge didn't really have very many chances, but Stevenage were limited as well in terms of what they did. Both sides were a bit tentative. City were trying to come onto the counter-attack as much as they could. They were getting a bit tired, as you would expect. And when you get to the 73rd minute, out of nowhere, Faith Harrison again has another shot. And this time, one of the defenders is running up and their hands go up to stop the ball from hitting their head, which obviously you can't do. And it was just inside the box. So it was a penalty. Jade Barrett steps up, pops it in. 2-1. All of a sudden, you're thinking all that hard work that's happened, you've got to try and pull it back again. And of course, City are always going to put people behind the ball, which is exactly what they did. Stevenage kept working hard, kept doing everything they could. Matilda Thomas O'Keefe, legend. Youngster who came through, she scored 6 goals for the development side before coming in the next season and scoring 10 goals as well. She's doing incredibly well this season as well. She's nearly at 10 already, and we're not even halfway through the season. Now, she's been doing fantastic. Comes on from the bench, wins the ball high up the pitch, chases back to get the ball back, and then just bullies the two of them off the ball as she's running towards goal, crosses the ball along the area, and Amy Makewell slides in. It's 2-2. The celebrations are mad. The defenders are just stood there going, how has this just happened? And it's one of those where if you're not from Stevenage, you are sitting there and going, oh, poor Cambridge, because they've put everything into it, every single sinew, and they are minutes away from a second round tie. But they say that quality shows through, and on this occasion it did, because on the opposite side of that coin there'd have been a lot of people sitting there thinking, how have they not won this game? This is what I mean. It's a proper cup tie. The underdogs doing incredibly well and really making it difficult. Now there's no extra time in the first round of the FA Cup, so we end up going straight to penalties. Interesting fact for you, the men's FA Cup matches also happened the day before, and for Stevenage, the same thing happened. They drew 1-1 with Guiseley and ended up having to go to a penalty shootout. So there were some fans who witnessed 2 penalty shootouts in the FA Cup. I'm surprised they're still here, to be honest with you, because they're nervy occasions. And what an occasion this was. Both scored their first penalty, but then Jay Barrett steps up to take her third opportunity of the day, and as happens in all these stories, it's saved. Stevenage go on to score the second one. The third penalty for Cambridge steps up. She's hoping it's going to go in. It doesn't. It goes just over the bar. Stevenage go on to score their next 2 penalties and make it through. But what a game of football this was. If you're Cambridge City and you're any part to do with them, what a part you played in this tie. It was honestly just amazing to watch. It was a fantastic spectacle, and it's what football is all about. So for me, absolutely superb football match, a privilege to be at it. And as you know, I do love a good story and a good bit of storytelling. And you'll have remembered that right at the very beginning, I mentioned it was at the Newcroft. And at the Newcroft was the place where Stevenage lost to Luton by 2-1. And the reason why I mentioned that, because Stevenage in the next round of the FA Cup have been drawn at home to Luton Town, who themselves had to struggle to get past Hutton. Hutton were 2-0 up after 14 minutes, and they managed to come back to win 4-2. So that's a massive one. Even in a local rivalry, you know, this is up there in some respects with like the City United, with the Arsenal Spurs. It's got that locality rivalry to it. And it's going to be very interesting to see how it goes. So there we go. That's Stevenage with what I think is the tie of the round. But then I would say that, wouldn't I? Because I was there. And it's nice to be able to say that. So there we go. That's the FA Cup for this week. The ties for the second round are played on the 24th of November. So those of you that haven't got your calendars out, it's in 2.5 weeks' time. So there'll be a couple of league fixtures and then we'll be there. Or possibly cup. It depends on what your local region is doing. So there we are. That's that. John, where are your beady eyes going to be focusing this weekend?
Well, as the Midlands representative, if you have a look at Division 1 Midlands and you see first against second, I think it's at least worth a mention. So Leithfield are at home against Peterborough for a second against first. However, because I've given Leithfield a bit of publicity on this show already, I'm going to talk about another game. It's in the same league, Lincoln United versus Boulmere. I've mentioned Boulmere before, but I've probably never mentioned Lincoln United. And the reason why this stands out to me is because they've just announced a new manager. Their new manager has come from Lincoln City. So Lincoln City, he parted ways with Lincoln City in the summer. So he hasn't had a club for a few months, but already he's brought back at least 2 players from who he used to manage at Lincoln City to Lincoln United. And more importantly, with this being a league game, there's only 3 points between these 2 teams, and that should not really be happening. You know, Boulmere should be further ahead than 3 points. So I don't know if you can hear the fireworks outside. Apologies if you can. It's quite heavy outside here in West Brom. But yeah, I think it's such an important game in the league as well. So Lincoln United, if they do manage to get these 3 points, they'll be equal with Boulmere, which is absolutely amazing at this stage of the season.
I'm glad it's the fireworks. I thought it was your tummy. I was getting a little bit worried. I thought we might have to get a doctor in for you. That's good news. Gareth, what about for you? Where should the fans of the North be travelling to en masse?
So, first of all, I'm glad that the fireworks outside my window have just stopped because for the last 3 minutes, that's been insane. I've not been able to really hear what John was saying then over those fireworks. So, um, my attention is on Durham Sestria against AFC Fylde. And the reason for that is both sides just outside the relegation zone on 7 points. Not only are both sides just outside the relegation zone on 7 points, 1 point clear, but both sides have identical records. They both have won 2 games. They both have drawn 1 game. They both have lost 5. Doesn't end there though, because both of them are on -5 goal difference as well. So their league records, in terms of the key points, I've not looked at it in detail in terms of whether they've scored or conceded the same amount of goals, but their league records are identical. They're both sort of down there towards the bottom end of the table. They have not scored and conceded the same amount of goals. I've just checked. But they both of them will be looking to try and pull out a gap from the bottom two. So they will be hoping, one of them at least will be hoping to end the weekend on 10 points, further afield from the bottom two than they already are. Both of them coming off defeats, I believe, in the FA Cup. Fylde especially, they lost against Cheadle. I believe Durham lost as well. So both will be looking to put that right. Both will be looking to move further away from the relegation zone. So yes, we've got a top of the table clash from Mr. Foster and a not quite bottom of the table, but not far off from myself. So I assume you're going to go for like 6th versus 7th then, Barry?
You see, you'd hope that, wouldn't you? But no, I'm not. I'm afraid there's going to be top 2, bottom 1. I think on this one, because it did not take me long. I don't feel like I've shown a lot of love to the Southern Premier over the last couple of weeks, but it didn't take me long whilst scouring through the fixture list to see one that would catch my eye incredibly quickly. And that is, of course, the fact that at the top at the moment of the Southern Premier, you have got #United with 23 points. And just below them, you have got Oxford United with 22 points. Now, ignore the fact that Ipswich are a couple of games behind and have the games in hand to pull back and overtake those totals, because they don't have the points on the board just yet. So as it stands, it will be first versus second. #United at home to Oxford United. It is the top 2 of the Southern Premier. And this is an important one. When you start looking at things like the Northern Premier and the Southern Premier, we're talking about the possibility here to go and play in the Championship. And that, this isn't, thank God we've gone away from the times when the winners of the Northern Premier had to play off against the Southern Premier so you could win a league and still stay in the same league, because that's just rubbish. Now, both sides will have the opportunity to go up. And # and Oxford are 2 of those sides that are very much in the running for doing that this very season. Now, obviously, if # get the win, that's 4 points clear of Oxford United, and it then puts them 6 points clear of Ipswich, depending on how they get on in their game, which will be against Cheltenham Town, who are not doing too well. So you would think that Ipswich would probably win that. But yes, for me, I think that your eyes need go no further than # United against Oxford, and it will be very interesting to see who wins. So there we go. That's my one. There you go. That is Women's FA Cup weekend done for another few weeks. We'll be back in 3 weeks' time for our next coverage of Women's FA Cup. We'll have another couple of weeks, though, in between that, looking at everything else lower league, because that's what we do here. Gareth, pleasure to have you here. Thank you very much. John, pleasure to have you here as well again. Let's all say a big thank you to my voice for just about managing to make it through. And thank you, most of all, for watching. Keep flying that flag for the lower league and keep speaking that lower league lingo. And we'll see you next week. Take care, everybody.